Every dealership has a few bikes they'd do anything to get rid of. We're talking about Japanese motorcycles that promise performance, style, or value, but missed the mark. This is the list of 14 models that were supposed to sell fast and ended up going nowhere. Number 14. Suzuki GSXS1000F. Built to satisfy both the thrill seeker and the long-distance rider, this machine was Suzuki's bold take on the sport touring category. It is powered by a 1004 cubic centimeter inline four-cylinder engine that produces 148 horsepower and 78 pound-feet of torque. That engine is derived from the same platform as the GSXR1000, tuned for street use with more mid-range torque and smoother power delivery. While the performance is impressive on paper, the riding experience told a different story. The ergonomics, designed to be more relaxed than a sport bike, were still too aggressive for true touring comfort. On the flip side, riders expecting GSXR sharpness found the handling too soft, especially under heavy cornering loads. The styling split opinions too, with an oversized front fairing and a body profile that looked more commuter than track-ready. At a starting price of $13,149, the GSXS1000F landed in a tricky spot, more expensive than many upright nakeds, but without the premium touring features of higher-end sport tours. Buyers expecting an all-rounder were often left wanting more. With strong competition from Yamaha's Tracer 9 and Kawasaki's Ninja 1000 SX, this bike never quite found its lane. Despite solid specs and a proven engine, it simply couldn't convince enough riders to commit. But the next bike proves that even Honda isn't immune to sales flops. Number 13. Honda NM4 Vultus. This is one of those motorcycles that made riders do a double take, but not always in a good way. The look was radical, futuristic, and styled like something out of a science fiction anime. It featured long bodywork panels, a low-slung profile, and an extended front end that almost resembled a stretched-out scooter. Power came from a 670 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine that produced 47 horsepower and 44 pound-feet of torque. Paired with Honda's dual-clutch automatic transmission, the riding experience was extremely smooth. But that smoothness came at the cost of excitement. Riders used to a manual gearbox felt disconnected, and many were put off by the scooter-like behavior. The seat height was extremely low at 25.6 inches, which made it accessible but also added to the awkward proportions. The riding position pushed feet forward and arms high, making it difficult to find a natural stance on longer trips. At 570 pounds, the bike wasn't light either, and with limited onboard storage, it didn't serve as a practical touring machine. With a starting price of $11,299, it sat well above many mid-tier cruisers that offered more traditional appeal, stronger resale value, and better comfort. Riders were confused. Was it a cruiser, a scooter, or a futuristic commuter? Unfortunately, that confusion killed its momentum. It was too odd for the mainstream market and too tame for enthusiasts looking for performance or customization. The NM4 Voltus may have looked cool to the right niche, but it failed to win over core cruiser fans. For most, it was a novelty, interesting to look at, but not something they wanted to take home. And if that looks strange, wait until you see the next cruiser that couldn't cruise into anyone's garage. Number 12. Kawasaki Vulcan S. This midway cruiser was supposed to rewrite the rules. It came with modern tech, sporty bones, and a price tag aimed at entry-level and intermediate riders. But the plan didn't quite land. Under the tank sits a 649 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine that produces 61 horsepower and 46 pound-feet of torque. It's the same engine used in the Ninja 650, known for reliability and efficiency. On a cruiser platform, though, it feels out of place. Most cruiser riders crave the low-end grunt, the lopey idle, and the visceral pulse of a proper V-twin. The Vulcan S delivers none of that. Instead, it offers smooth revs, a quiet tone, and a delivery that feels too refined for a category built on rawness. Kawasaki added the ErgoFit system to appeal to a wide range of rider sizes, allowing adjustments to handlebars, foot pegs, and seats. And while the low seat height and neutral steering make it beginner-friendly, it's not enough to win over seasoned riders looking for soul and character. Visually, it walks an odd line. The minimalist styling, exposed frame, and sharp angles make it look more like a naked sport bike than a classic cruiser. It weighs in at 498 pounds, which makes it manageable around town but lacks the substance that long-distance riders expect. Priced at $7,399, it falls into an awkward slot. Riders willing to spend a bit more often choose used Harley Davidson models or other options that deliver a more traditional cruiser experience. The Vulcan S tried to serve two masters, sport and cruiser, and ended up not fully satisfying either. Now let's move from a quiet misfire to a former king stripped of its crown. If you found this list interesting, hit that like button and subscribe. We've got more exclusive insights coming your way, so don't miss out. Number 11. Suzuki Hayabusa. There was a time when this machine was the undisputed king of speed. It held the title of the fastest production motorcycle in the world, and for many riders it was the dream. Pure, unfiltered power wrapped in aerodynamic curves. The third-generation model comes equipped with a 1,340 cubic centimeter inline four-cylinder engine, delivering 187 horsepower and 110 pound-feet of torque. Those are still jaw-dropping numbers by any standard. It rockets from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 3 seconds, and it can cruise all day at triple-digit speeds without breaking a sweat. But here's the problem. Most riders no longer want that. In today's market, performance alone doesn't close the deal. Riders are looking for bikes that blend comfort, versatility, and real-world usability. This machine is big, heavy, and purpose-built for high-speed touring and drag strip sprints. That makes it thrilling in a straight line but cumbersome in tight city traffic or winding back roads. At $18,500, it's also a serious financial commitment. Add insurance premiums, especially for younger riders, and the cost of high-performance tires and maintenance, and suddenly it becomes a bike that only a narrow group of enthusiasts can justify owning. It is not nimble, it is not fuel-efficient, and it is definitely not beginner-friendly. For many buyers, newer sport tourers or adventure bikes offer more value for less money. As a result, this legend of speed is now one of the most overlooked bikes in showrooms today. Its reputation remains iconic, but in practice, the market has moved on. Speaking of legends, the next one might break your heart. It used to dominate, now it just depreciates. Number 10. Yamaha RR6. Few motorcycles carried the same legendary status on the racetrack as this one. Lightweight, aggressive, and high revving, it was a favorite among skilled riders and track day warriors. Powered by a 599 cubic centimeter inline four-cylinder engine, it delivered an impressive 123 horsepower and 42 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers made it one of the most potent supersport motorcycles in its class. The chassis was razor-sharp, the suspension fully adjustable, and the braking system top-tier, offering precise control at high speeds. Everything about it screamed performance, but that came with a cost. Daily usability was never part of its design language. The riding position was extreme, forcing the rider into a full tuck, and the suspension felt harsh on anything other than smooth pavement. For commuting, it was uncomfortable. For long-distance rides, it was borderline punishing. That aggressive design, once its strongest asset, became a liability in a shifting market. As emissions regulations tightened in the early 2020s, this model was eventually pulled from production after the 2021 model year. Its replacement, the R7, took a more practical approach, offering better ergonomics and more accessible performance. Despite its unmatched track record, this bike found itself boxed into a niche too narrow for most modern riders. With a price tag of $12,299 at launch, it was also pushing into the territory of larger, more versatile motorcycles. Today, dealerships still holding on to unsold inventory are finding fewer and fewer takers. It remains a legend, but only for a very specific kind of rider. But what if a bike failed, not because it was aggressive, but because it was too nice? Number 9. Honda CTX 700. This machine was built with comfort, practicality, and simplicity in mind, but somehow it ended up as one of the most overlooked motorcycles in its class. Power comes from a 670 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine delivering 48 horsepower and 44 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers are modest, but they were never meant to blow riders away. The focus here was on relaxed cruising, smooth performance, and ease of use. That's why it came with a low seat height, forward controls, and even the option for Honda's automatic dual-clutch transmission. For commuters or newer riders, it offered an intimidating experience. But for more seasoned bikers, especially cruiser enthusiasts, it missed the mark completely. The styling didn't help. It leaned toward a futuristic look but lacked the chrome, muscle, and attitude that cruiser fans love. Riders expecting the low rumble and deep pull of a V-twin were disappointed by the mellow parallel twin feel, and while it offered decent wind protection and respectable fuel economy, it lacked the performance, sound, and street presence that make a cruiser memorable. At $7,699, the CTX 700 was priced to compete with more iconic bikes that simply delivered more character and curb appeal. For some riders, it offered everything they needed. For most, though, it just didn't offer enough of what they wanted. Now let's talk about a motorcycle that tried to be everything and ended up being nothing. Number 8. Honda DN01. There are motorcycles that break the mold, and then there are motorcycles that shatter it so completely that buyers don't even know what they're looking at. This is a perfect example of the latter. It was introduced as a futuristic hybrid between a sport bike, a cruiser, and a scooter, but it ended up alienating fans of all three categories. At its core is a 680 cubic centimeter V-twin engine producing 61 horsepower and 47 pound-feet of torque. That engine was paired with Honda's human-friendly transmission, a continuously variable automatic gearbox designed to simplify the riding experience. But for many seasoned riders, the lack of gear control made the ride feel numb, and for new riders, the bike's size and price were intimidating. Visually, the design was unlike anything else on the market at the time. With sweeping body panels and extremely low seat and wide front fairings, it looked more like a concept sketch than a production motorcycle. It sat low, stretched long, and rolled on a relaxed chassis that made parking lot maneuvering easy, but robbed the bike of any real sport handling. Weighing in at 595 pounds and with limited cornering clearance, it did not perform like a cruiser or a sport bike. Its ergonomics confused riders as well. Too forward for casual cruising, too laid back for spirited riding. Priced at $15,599, it was significantly more expensive than better performing bikes in its class. Ultimately, the design, transmission, and performance never added up to a clear identity, and that confusion kept it off many buyers' lists. It tried to be everything and ended up being nothing. Number 7. Yamaha Bolt RS. This machine was meant to take the fight straight to the middleweight cruiser market. With a stripped-down design and urban styling, it carried the kind of attitude Yamaha hoped would appeal to Harley riders looking for something different. Under the tank sits a 942 cubic centimeter air-cooled V-twin engine, producing 53 horsepower and 59 pound-feet of torque. That powertrain delivered solid low-end grunt, and the compact chassis made it surprisingly nimble for city cruising. The styling was clean and purposeful, with blacked-out finishes, spoked wheels, and a low solo seat that gave it a bobber-inspired look. But despite all these strengths, it never gained the traction Yamaha expected. At a starting price of $8,899, it was priced to compete directly with entry-level American cruisers, especially the 883. And that's where the trouble began. While the Bolt RS was mechanically sound, many traditional cruiser buyers simply weren't ready to abandon Harley Davidson's brand loyalty. The engine may have been reliable and the ride smooth, but the emotional pull of a true American V-twin still outweighed the logic of Japanese engineering. Add to that a limited aftermarket, fewer customization options, and a dealer network that didn't aggressively push the model, and the Bolt RS slowly faded into the background. Riders looking for performance chose more aggressive cruisers, while traditionalists stayed with American metal. Despite its quality and intentions, it became one of those bikes that looked good on paper, but couldn't keep up in the real world. Now let's head to the land of sport bikes again, but this time with a twist of entry-level pain. Number 6. Kawasaki Ninja 250. Once hailed as the go-to beginner bike, this model made its name through affordability, simplicity, and approachability. But times have changed. Powered by a 248 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine, it delivers 29 horsepower and 18 pound-feet of torque. While that might have been enough in the early 2000s, today's entry-level bikes have raised the bar in every direction, leaving this one feeling underpowered and outdated. Its carbureted fueling system, once standard, now feels like a relic. Unlike modern fuel-injected systems that provide reliable cold starts and minimal maintenance, carburetors require constant tuning and cleaning, particularly in cold or humid climates. For new riders seeking convenience, that's a major drawback. The riding position is neutral and upright, which helped with learning, but the bike's soft suspension and single front disc brake don't inspire confidence, especially when compared to modern alternatives. On the freeway, it struggles to keep pace, making it feel less safe and capable than newer offerings. Weighing in at 375 pounds and priced at $4,499 when new, it was once considered a smart first purchase. But now bikes like the Ninja 400 or the Yamaha R3 have completely overtaken it. Both of those options offer more power, better braking systems, modern suspension setups, and a user-friendly riding experience that makes this older carbureted bike hard to justify. Today's riders expect performance and practicality from day one, and this model just can't keep up anymore. It helped shape the entry-level sport bike market, but that legacy isn't enough to make it relevant today. And while that one aged poorly, this next bike barely got a chance before the market turned its back. Number 5. Honda CB1100. This was Honda's love letter to the golden age of motorcycling, a throwback design blended with modern technology. But in the American market, it struggled to connect. At the core of this machine is a 1148 cubic centimeter air-cooled inline 4-cylinder engine. It produces 89 horsepower and 66 pound-feet of torque, giving it enough muscle for relaxed highway cruising and everyday use. The engine is smooth and predictable, with a delivery that feels more like a refined vintage car than a high-strung sport bike. It rides on traditional twin rear shocks and a classic steel double cradle frame, giving it the look and feel of a true retro machine. But for all its charm, that refinement was part of the problem. It was simply too tame for riders wanting performance and too expensive for those just chasing nostalgia. With a starting price of $12,399, the CB1100 competed with bikes that had stronger branding and more aggressive riding dynamics. Riders looking for old-school thrills lean toward more raw, character-driven machines, often American V-twins, and younger buyers often ignored it altogether, choosing cheaper and lighter models. Its classic round headlamp, analog dials, and chrome accents gave it undeniable style, but it never evolved enough over its run to spark new interest. Even though it had solid engineering and Honda's legendary reliability, it fell into a gap between categories. Too modern to feel classic and too classic to feel modern. Dealerships were left with a bike that looked great on the floor, but rarely made it past a test ride. From too refined to too niche, let's talk about a mini bike that got lost in the hype. Number 4. Honda Grom. This bike was never supposed to be taken too seriously, and that was exactly why people loved it. With a compact design, cartoonish proportions, and a lightweight frame, it quickly became a favorite among city riders, beginners, and anyone who just wanted to have fun on two wheels. Underneath the playful exterior, early versions were powered by a 125 cubic centimeter single-cylinder engine, producing just 9 horsepower and 8 pound-feet of torque. Weighing only 227 pounds, it was incredibly easy to ride, park, and maneuver through tight urban environments. But as newer models hit the market with updated suspension, more refined engines, and upgraded features, the original Grom started collecting dust in dealerships. Riders who once found it quirky now saw it as outdated. The early models lacked modern touches like full digital displays, better lighting, and improved braking systems. At a price of $3,599, the original seemed less appealing when side by side with newer iterations that offered more refinement for just a little extra money. While it will always have a cult following and remain one of the most recognized small bikes in the world, the reality is that older versions no longer move like they used to. Dealers who once couldn't keep them in stock are now sitting on leftover inventory, waiting for someone to see the charm in the simpler, stripped-down versions of a bike that helped redefine what a mini motorcycle could be. The fun factor is still there, but the competition has moved forward and the early Groms have been left behind. Small bikes can have big problems, and this next one proves it. Number 3. Kawasaki Z125 Pro. Built to take on the rising popularity of mini bikes, this compact machine was designed as a direct competitor to the Honda Grom. It came equipped with a 125 cubic centimeter air-cooled single-cylinder engine that produced 9 horsepower and 7 pound-feet of torque. The goal was clear: create an affordable, fun-size motorcycle with street-legal performance and a playful ride. On paper, it checked many of the right boxes. The Z125 Pro featured a lightweight frame, a low seat height of 31.7 inches, and a manual 4-speed transmission, making it approachable for new riders, but still engaging for experienced ones looking for a city runabout. At a starting price of $3,599, it looked like a value-packed option for urban commuting or stunt riding. But there were issues that kept it from taking off. Unlike the Grom, the Z125 Pro lacked the same level of aftermarket support, which mattered a lot to younger riders who wanted to customize their bikes. The styling was also less distinctive, and without a strong online community or viral marketing push, it struggled to gain cultural traction. In terms of performance, it felt solid at low speeds but quickly ran out of breath on open roads, especially when compared to competitors offering slightly larger engines or more refined fuel injection systems. While it was a decent ride for short distances and tight traffic, it didn't do much to stand out in a market full of small, nimble alternatives. What was supposed to be a breakout rival ended up as an overlooked option collecting dust in showrooms. And now for a touring machine that had everything, except the sales numbers to back it up. Number 2. Yamaha FJ09. When Yamaha launched the FJ09 in 2015, it seemed like a near-perfect answer for riders who wanted the performance of a naked bike with the comfort and utility of a sport tourer. It was based on the wildly successful MT-09 platform and featured the same 3-cylinder, 847 cubic centimeter engine, a punchy, torque-rich power plant, making 115 horsepower and 65 pound-feet of torque. Matched with a 6-speed transmission, upright handlebars, a 5-gallon tank, and a wet weight of just under 500 pounds, the FJ09 was nimble, fast, and surprisingly capable for long-haul rides. But despite its specs and real-world versatility, the FJ09 never took off in the way Yamaha hoped. The biggest issue, identity. Riders couldn't quite figure out what it was trying to be. Sport bike riders looked at the touring windshield and bags and turned away. Touring riders saw the chain drive, lack of wind protection, and compact size, and chose more traditional options like the Kawasaki Vulcan 1000 or even larger adventure tours. It lived in a gray area. Then came the ergonomics. The seat was firm and narrow, and the stock windscreen didn't provide enough protection at highway speeds. For taller riders especially, wind buffeting was a constant complaint. While the engine was lively, throttle response was twitchy in the early model years, making low-speed riding feel jerky, something that turned off newer or more relaxed riders. Even the styling didn't help. It had a bit of an awkward utilitarian look, a step up from the naked MT-09, but not refined enough to compete with sleeker sport touring bikes. It lacked the aesthetic polish that often pushes buyers over the edge. Priced at $10,490 when new, it landed in a competitive field. Many riders spending that kind of money were already looking toward adventure bike with bigger fuel tanks, better wind protection, or simply more curb appeal. Eventually, Yamaha replaced the FJ09 with the Tracer 900. As that happened, dealerships quietly marked down leftover FJ09 ES. Even today, some still sit unsold, with low miles and dealer incentives, waiting for someone to recognize the value under the dust. It's a solid machine, fast, fun, and practical, but its vague identity and early flaws made it a tough sell. It wasn't bad, it just didn't fit cleanly into any rider's dream. And finally, the one bike that's become a punchline at dealership meetings across the country. Number 1. Suzuki Boulevard C50. What was intended to be a dependable entry-level cruiser with classic styling and approachable performance has become one of the most overlooked bikes on the showroom floor. Beneath its chrome-finished shell lies an air-cooled, fuel-injected 805 cubic centimeter V twin engine. It delivers a modest 45 horsepower and 46 pound-feet of torque, just enough to make it a decent around-town machine, but nowhere near enough to excite riders looking for a strong pull in the low end. It comes with a 5-speed transmission and shaft drive, 2 features that make maintenance simple for newer riders. The seat height is just under 27 inches, giving it excellent approachability for shorter riders, and its curb weight of 611 pounds gives it a planted feel without being intimidating. Priced at $9,299, the value proposition seems strong at first glance. It includes a large teardrop tank, classic fenders, and traditional cruiser geometry. But this formula hasn't aged well. Many riders in this price range are leaning toward used Harley Davidson Sportsters or Indian Scouts, which offer more power, better aftermarket support, and far stronger brand appeal. The Boulevard C50 doesn't have the same cultural presence, and for a crowd that values image as much as performance, that can be the final nail in the coffin. The styling, while retro, feels dated rather than nostalgic, and its ride lacks the distinct growl and feedback that cruiser fans expect. Despite being reliable and affordable, it's often passed over, not for what it is, but for what it isn't. It had the right specs, the right price, and still couldn't make it off the showroom floor. But what does that say about today's buyers? Which bike shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more.